Before beginning with the session, I extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished speakers for today and all the students who joined us from the Youth Bar Association of India. So, briefly introducing the session, I have been asked to moderate the session. It's a privilege actually to be a moderator in today's session. So, this session is a special session which is organized by the Youth Bar Association of India. So they are organizing this virtual summer school on arbitration, which I think is first of its own kind, especially in this lockdown which we've been seeing. And this is a 10-day law school, virtual school that they've organized. And this session forms part of a special session of that virtual school. So today we have a very interesting topic to discuss. That's the plea bargaining and scope of mediation in criminal matters. So as we all know that mediation, the role of mediation comes in place, especially in today's scenario, as we know that a lot of pendency of disputes, also the expenses that's involved in litigation. So in order to ensure speedy justice and also to ensure that a poor person can have access to justice, I think this is a relevant topic to discuss, especially in today's scenario, because in the post-COVID days, we know that there will be a lot of disputes, and this the pending cases will be entering a system which is already overburdened with a lot of cases. So before beginning with the session, let me just briefly introduce our speakers for today. So today we are extremely privileged to have with us Sri Ketes Tulsi, is a senior advocate and a member of Parliament Rajya Sabha. Sir, as we all know, there's no need for introduction. I've personally seen Sir addressing the young lawyers and the audience, the auditorium, erupting with spontaneous applause when Sir addressed the young lawyers. So he's been an inspiration for a lot of young lawyers, including me. And Sir graduated from Punjab University in 1971. He was designated as a senior advocate in 1987 and was appointed as the Additional Solicitor General of India in 1990. He's represented in a sweep of high-profile cases. And of course, sir, we are privileged to have you with us. I extend a hearty welcome to you. The another speaker we are extremely privileged to have with us is Honorable Justice Lokpal Singh, who is a judge of the Uttarakhand High Court. So, as we all know that Sir graduated from the Meerut University in 1988. He started his practice in the Uttarakhand High Court. His practice ranged from civil to criminal, constitutional matters, service matters, arbitration. And on 19th of May 2007, he was elevated as a permanent judge of the Uttarakhand High Court. I extend a very warm welcome to you as well, sir. So with this, I'll just briefly explain how we'll move with today's session. So we'll have a brief, of course, the address by both of our distinguished speakers, and then we'll move to a question answer round, which will be open for the students who joined us for today. With this, I move to our first speaker. Tulsi sir, may I please request you to start with your address?
She is asking you to start with you.
She's asking, shall I start?
Right,
Yes,
sir.
please. Yes, please. We are eagerly waiting for your speech.
Gee, how much time do I have?
Sir, so it's of course open to you. There's no time limit, but we have kept this session for an hour. So, of course,
And we may extend it to more than that. We can extend it till 6.
Of course, we can extend.
Because this is a special session and we may take the liberty.
My Lord Justice Lokpal Singh Ji, Mr. Sanpreet Singh, Tanvi, and other members of the organizing who are organizing this Youth Bar Association of India. And I'm very glad to see plea bargaining in criminal cases being put at par with mediation or arbitration. This is one of the most misunderstood chapters in the Criminal Procedure Code by all concerned who are part of the criminal justice system. Nobody seems to understand that there is a difference between confession and plea bargaining. I many a times go to the lower courts and was first-hand. I was a witness to a person, poor illiterate person, saying that I want to make a plea. And the judge, learned judge says, चलो भाई जल्दी पीपी साहब इनका confession लिखिए. Now, once the court or the prosecution reduce it to a confession, and they record a confession as a condition for starting plea bargaining, I think that's where this entire concept dies. And it's virtually dead in India. In countries like America, where 90% criminal cases are decided by plea bargaining. In America, all offenses are subject to plea bargaining. Whereas in India, only cases which are punishable with more than 7 years or more than 7 years, in those it's not available, but the remaining cases where the punishment is 7 years or less, in those cases, the plea bargaining alone is available. I want to say that if there is to be a single, if we were to name a single largest factor for collapse of criminal justice system in our country, it is lack of understanding of plea bargaining. And plea bargaining, there has been opposition to plea bargaining even in America. And they have said it in so many words that if we were to withdraw plea bargaining, the criminal justice system would collapse. And that's exactly what's happening in our country. My second emphasis will be that we must include all offenses for plea bargaining to become successful. All cases. Economic issues, murder cases, mass murder cases. For example, even Martin Luther King, the assassin, asked for plea bargaining and he got plea bargaining. He was able to avoid death sentence, but he was sentenced then by the court to 99 years. They take care of everything, plea bargaining. We have had some votaries who have always spoken in favor of plea bargaining. And Justice Pasayat is one person who thought that this is the only way we can bail out the criminal justice system. But I am wanting to go through the arrangement. Plea bargaining was introduced as Chapter 21, Capital A in Criminal Procedure Code in 2006, I think. And according to Section 265A, Capital A, the chapter of plea bargaining is applicable both to police cases as well as to complaint cases, provided they are punishable with sentence of 7 years or less. because the term is other than the offences punishable with death or imprisonment for life or imprisonment for a term exceeding 7 years. Exceeding 7 years will be barred, but up to 7 years, it is covered by the provision of Section 265, capital A. In the complaint cases, the application can be filed after the cognizance has been taken by the court. And in police cases, also an application can be filed after the cognizance has been taken, or at least the report under Section 173, the final report, has been filed in the court. In police cases, it's the report under 173 which is the trigger for applying plea bargaining, and in complaint cases, it is an order passed under Section 200 where the cognizance is taken and process is issued. After that, the accused can apply for plea bargaining, provided this is not the offences which are involved are not punishable with more than 7 years, and these are not socio-economic offences which the government has been permitted to define. Section 265, capital A, subclause 2, gives this power to the central government to make a notification specifying the offences to which plea bargaining will not be applicable. Section 265, capital B, lays down the procedure by which the application for plea bargaining can be filed by the accused after 173 report or after order of cognizance in complaint cases. Then what kind of an application? Because many of the people will be poor, there has been a comprehensive legislation where even the procedure of determining and progressing with the plea bargaining has been prescribed. It says that, subclause 2 says that the application will contain brief description of the case. It will be supported by an affidavit of the accused, sworn by the accused, where he must state whether he has been previously convicted or not. If he has been previously convicted, he will not be entitled to plea bargaining. Clause 3 of Section 265, capital B, lays down what will happen after he has filed an application along with an affidavit, and the learned judge seems to be satisfied that it's voluntary and is not under force. Then, under clause 3, the learned judge will issue notice to the public prosecutor on satisfaction of these materials. Then subclause 4 says that thereafter, the court will examine the accused in camera and victim will not be there. In the first, clause 4 says that the prosecutor or the complainant of the case, as the case may be, and the accused appears on the date fixed under subsection 3, the court shall examine the accused in camera, where the party where the other party in the case shall not be present. Then 4A. 4A is the most vital application of mine to the request for plea bargaining, and there the court has to record its satisfaction that it has been, the application has been made voluntarily, and then gives time to the prosecutor or the complainant to work out a mutually satisfactory disposition. Mutually satisfactory disposition has advisedly been used by the legislature, lest it should be confused with a confession. So confession is not sine qua non. In fact, the entire chapter does not talk about the confession. It lays down the procedure very clearly and elaborately, but yet, in spite of all that, we find that there is complete lack of understanding of the provision throughout the country in all criminal courts. That will be apparent from the number of cases that have succeeded since 2015. If the court then finds at a later stage that the application was involuntary or that he has been previously convicted, the matter will be dropped. Then the guidelines for mutually satisfactory disposition are contained in Section 265 capital C. And Section 265 capital C says that the procedure, three-stage procedure is laid down. First, the court will give notice to the prosecutor that it is voluntary and he's not been previously convicted. That stage is over. Now we come to the stage whether there is mutually satisfactory disposition. For that, the notice is issued to the prosecutor, and notice is issued to the investigating officer who has investigated the case, and the notice is also issued to the victim. They are asked to work out a mutually satisfactory disposition. And I think that's the magic word in this chapter. It will be completed by the parties. This entire process is to be completed by the parties as soon as possible. And the accused may, if he desires, participate in the meeting with the pleader. If any is engaged, he can say that my lawyer will go there. Thereafter comes this clause B of section 265C. And clause B says that in a case which is instituted otherwise than in the police report, that means complaint case, notice will also be issued to the victim, provided there is a satisfactory disposition of the case, that it is completely voluntary and there is a disposition. Further, it provides that the victim of the case, the accused, as the case may be, if he so desires, he may participate in the meeting. 265D, capital D, is mutually satisfactory disposition to be submitted before the court, where in a meeting under 265C, a satisfactory disposition of the case has been worked out, the court shall prepare a report of such disposition which shall be signed by the presiding officer, of the court and all other persons who have participated in the meeting. Thereafter is the disposal of case 265E. 265E lays down that if the satisfactory disposition of the case has been worked out, the court shall dispose of the case in the following manner. Here, there are 4 steps which are specifically provided. A, or 1, how much compensation to the victim is to be given. That is first. The second is the quantum of sentence, quantum of punishment. The third is probation. Is he entitled to be released on probation of offenders there? Then the court can take into account that provision and pass the relevant order. And the fourth is, the court can also release him on coming to the conclusion with regard to his conduct that this is the scheme, and then sentence. How does the quantum of sentence get worked out? C, after hearing the parties in clause B, the court finds that the minimum punishment has been provided under the law for the offenses committed by the accused. It may sentence the accused to half of such minimum. Whatever is the minimum sentence, half of that. We lawyers should know these provisions because we go on filing bail application after bail application, but we never seem to consider the option which can be exercised right up to the Supreme Court. We never seem to utilize the provisions of this revolutionary chapter. So this is half if minimum sentence is provided. Even so, it overrides the penal section. Then in case, after hearing the parties under clause B, the court finds that the offense committed by the accused is not covered by clause B or C, then it may sentence the accused to 1/4 of the punishment provided or extendable as the case may be. 1/4 of the sentence. This is a huge relief which is available. The only problem in Indian law is that it's perhaps too elaborate, too repetitive, and it excludes major cases which could have benefited from these provisions. 7 years and above, you say this is not available, then how is the criminal justice system to be understood by the judges and by the council? So then it says that the judgment is signed in open court and it will be signed by the presiding officer in the presence of the others. Finality of judgment. This judgment under the plea bargaining, this judgment is final. No appeal can be entertained against that. It overrides the provisions of all other chapters and provides for this. Power of the court in plea bargaining. This is section 265 capital H. A court shall have, for the purpose of discharging its functions under this chapter, all powers vested in respect of bail or trial of offences and other matters relating to disposal of a case in such court under this code. Then the period undergone, whether that will be deducted from the sentence that is awarded. This is section 265I. The provisions of section 428 shall apply for setting off the period of detention undergone. Huge benefit to the accused. We go on filing bail applications for early disposal of the appeal, one after the other. We never consider that a person has already undergone 8 years, 9 years. We can secure his release through plea bargaining. So this is even the period under trial that has been spent by him in the prison, that will be deducted. And the saving clause, section 265J, it overrides all other laws. This is an overriding provision. The provisions of this chapter shall have effect, notwithstanding anything inconsistent therewith contained in any other provision of the code, and nothing in such other provision shall be construed to constrain the meaning of provision in this chapter. So this has the overriding provision. I only wish that these provisions were not as repetitive and not as long. We needed a Macaulay to be able to draft laws for us. Unfortunately, he's not around. But even the British agree that the masterpieces, the three masterpieces of Lord Macaulay were the Indian Penal Code, the Evidence Act, and the Criminal Procedure Code. There was never a doubt about the meaning and scope of the provisions. I wish we in India can acquire the art of drafting, which simplifies the law. I would like to deal with a little in slight detail the manner in which plea bargaining has worked in America from 1920 onwards. From now we find that in one of the most prominent features of criminal justice in America is their plea bargaining system. And by 1980s, almost 90% convictions in the United States were through guilty pleas in plea bargaining. American criminal justice, they say, would collapse if plea bargaining is removed. Indeed, we have seen that because we have not applied this provision and we haven't really made any effort to popularize it, the criminal justice system seems to be collapsing. In case of Brady versus the United States, it was held by the US Supreme Court that the plea bargaining is constitutionally valid. They held that merely because the agreement was entered into out of fear that the trial may result in death sentence would not illegitimize a bargained plea of guilty. In 1969, James Earl Ray pleaded guilty to assassination of Martin Luther King to avoid execution. He finally got imprisonment for 99 years. In Borden-Kircher versus Hayes, the US Supreme Court held that constitutional rationale for plea bargaining is that there is no element of punishment or retaliation. The position in other countries, in South America or South Africa or Far East, is particularly in the poorer countries, the provision is that plea bargaining is often criticized that it is a product of coercion, threat, or other undue influence which deteriorate the outcome of criminal justice system. In spite of all that criticism, 88% cases are decided on the basis of plea bargaining. The position in India is abysmal. Only 0.45% of cases under IPC are disposed of by plea bargaining in 2015. I think we don't have the statistics, because now statistics has become very valuable asset of the government. We don't come by that. The cases, total number of cases, criminal cases in 2015 in the country were 1 crore, 5 lakh, etc. Then, according to a report in the Times of India in 2015, from where we took these statistics, over 4,000 cases of murder, robbery, and crime against women were disposed of by the courts in 2014 after plea bargaining, which I think is completely illegal. Which takes us to the point that we must raise our voice in the parliament and try to persuade the government to bring about a bill where all cases will be included in the process of plea bargaining. That's my submission. I hope I have covered the time provided.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for this insightful session and your views. I think starting from the initial understanding of the entire plea bargaining process to the application process, and as you said, that there's a lack of understanding. And I think that we must have such sessions, and it's very important for people to know about this process. So and we are really thankful for your address. So moving on to our next speaker, I request Justice Lokpal Singh, Lordship, I request you to give your views on the current topic.
Thank you very much. We have heard Mr. KTS Tulsi at length, as he has elaborately discussed the provisions of Section 265A to 265L of the CRPC. He rightly said that the provisions which has been made in the America long back in 1920, but fact remains that except the US, none of the country was inclined to take this opportunity to deal with the criminal matters. Therefore, the voice was raised throughout the world. Initially, it was opposed in the India, that it is against the public policy. If a person has committed a crime, he should be punished according to the law prevailing in the country. So many jurists have raised their voice that since very beginning, the punishment we have learned from our ancestors, that a mother punish the boy, punish the daughter. Look here, you have committed a wrong. Tell me the truth. If you will tell me the truth, I will give you a lesser punishment. If you will not tell me the truth, you will be punished hard. So I think this concept of plea bargain is on the theme of our ancestors. Though we have not opted this theme, and by way of amendment on 5th of July 2006 made applicable chapter 21A in the CRPC. If we go with the section 321 is a withdrawal of the criminal case against an accused in the public interest. what is the public interest? We have to see what is the public interest. For all that purpose, if the state withdraws the application, always the not always, but most of the time, the objections comes by the public prosecutor or the victim that this is not in fact in public benefit or public purpose. So why you are withdrawing this case? I am the victim. Who will compensate me if the prosecution withdraw the case? So far withdrawal is concerned, withdrawal is also one of the type of reducing the unnecessary litigation, unnecessary harassment of a accused. But fact remains that why this plea bargain started. The purpose is to reduce the pendency in the states. So far our country is concerned, in our country, the pendency of criminal matters is increasing day by day. I can share a story that a man of 35 years committed double murder in 1978. I was young boy at that time. Trial concluded, he was convicted by the Session Judge Saharpur. Then he filed the appeal. Last week I came to know that the person is of 80 years of age, the convict, and his appeal is still not ripe for final hearing. If in any case he dies, who will compensate if his successors substituted in the appeal, saying that we wish to continue the appeal, please permit us, my father has been falsely implicated. Or if it is found that he is the guilty, conviction is upheld. What is the purpose of continuing such a litigation, of convicting him when he died in a natural course? So all these things should be considered. Mr. KTS Tulsi has said one thing importantly, that we have not given a publicity to the provisions of chapter 21A. 21. He has rightly said that if we give the more publicity to these provisions of law, though we should have started a workshop on it. Though I am really thankful to invite me on this webinar, that pre-bargain and mediation in criminal matters. So those who have joined this webinar, the students or the lawyers, whomsoever may be, they have really get benefit of it. And when this topic was sent to me, I will not hesitate that I ask a query from a senior lawyer. Mr. Counsel, do you know the plea bargain? He, though really, I realized subsequently that we are in a video conferencing arguments, virtual arguments. I should not ask such question from the lawyer. But he replied, fairly sir, I have not read the. So I said, okay, please read section 265A to L. So he was not able to find out of which act these provisions are mentioned. Then I said, okay, please read the section 265A of the CRPC. So my contention is that senior lawyers are not aware. And I have not seen a single case in my state where the plea of bargain is taken in any of the cases. So if really a such a really such a beautiful chapter for the benefit of the not for the benefit of the accused, but it is in the interest of the society, as we are unable to decide the cases promptly. So on the one hand, it gives a benefit to the accused, as if the plea bargain is admitted, then on the condition prescribed, then he will get the benefit up to the one-fourth of the sentence, or he may be let free for the period undergone, as prescribed under section 428 of the GRPC. One thing more important is that victim, if in such a case any compensation is to be paid to the victim, it should be paid then and there. For accused, there will be no stigma. It will of conviction. Such type of conviction on plea bargain will not debar him in a government employment or something else, because this principle is based on a principle of fairness. So the principle of fairness definitely improve the quality of the life and trust in the society. People will say, okay, what is the quality of the life and trust? Yes, quality of life means he will live happily, the accused and the victim also. So it will benefit the. I gave one example of double murder case. Now I would like to give example of another case. Another case is that for an offense of 325, the accused persons are languishing in jail. Jail trial has not commenced, and they have in some cases, so many accused persons have completed the terms more than the prescribed in the law. The magistrates are not able to understand why those people are keeping behind the bar. If the trial has not commenced, it is your fault. If the bail has not been granted, it is your fault. That's why the principle has been developed. Bail is the rule, jail is the exception. But Mr. Tulsi is here. How many lawyers argue this plea? Even in last 3.5 years, I have not seen across a single argument, sir, bail is the rule. Not a single lawyer argued this. This is a principle of bail, but none has argued before me. So I would submit that the lawyers who are participating in this program may take the benefit of this. Now, mediation. Mediation is a very important part. Mr. Tulsi has not touched the mediation part, but mediation is a part which can be not rightly on the plea bargain, but in so many matters. For example, maintenance matters. Maintenance matter. So if the wife and husband will contest for years and years, and there will be no maintenance to the wife, so how she will contest against the husband without funds? So mediation, and if any case is decided by mediation, either by the court, by intervening. Now you people are aware that now the government is emphasizing on the mediation programs, and judicial academies of the respective states are organizing the workshops on the mediation. So deciding the matters before the Lok Adalat by mediation or in the courts by mediation, we can say the compounding, we can say by compromise, the criminal case or the civil suit, whatever may be. So far, these 125 matters, 25 cases concerned, these cases should be decided by mediation. 498A matters should be decided by mediation. These cases also we can decide it by plea bargain, but no one takes this plea. So if the person has been found guilty, he will not be debarred from other benefits. So all these things can be for the benefit of the society, and perhaps I could not hear his voice when he was talking at the that this plea is available at appellate stage. Plea bargain will not debar. Appeal is a continuation of the trial. Though at the time of trial at any stage, an accused can file an application for plea bargain. I may be granted the benefit of plea bargain. I am ready to admit my guilt. I confess. He used the word confess, but it is confession is before the trial or before the police or before the authority, but it is also one kind of confession. Confession means I confess I don't wish to contest the matter. So confess, it does not in the sense that I confess but it is an admission. Admission, confession, and not contending. All these things are synonymous to each other, to my understanding. So confession means this is not a plea bargain. On the confession, a person will be convicted according to the law. But on a plea bargain, the person will be convicted according to the provisions made in Chapter 21 of the CRPC. So this is the only difference. But confession and for the purpose of sentence, however, confession and plea bargain are the same thing. Only I am of difference of view on this point: confession and plea bargain. So, if any question comes from the other side, or if Mr. KTS Tulsi wish to say anything, I am open to hear.
Over to you, Tanvi.
Thank you, sir, for this insightful session, and especially when you referred about your experiences, I think that helped a lot to understand this entire process of bargaining and mediation. Moving quickly towards the next section, that's the question answer round from the students. So I request the participants to unmute themselves and then ask their respective questions from the speakers. I believe there are a couple of questions that the participants would want to ask.
Prithvi, you may unmute yourself. Prithvi.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Honorable Advocate, sir, and Honorable Justice. This is Prithvyar Hegde, and my question is, certain section of the legal fraternity has an opinion that plea bargaining can reduce the deterrence and respect for law and tends to extort guilty pleas. What is your take on this?
Your question is to Mr. KTS Tulsi or to me?
Sir, both of you actually.
Yes, sir. Mr. KTS Tulsi, you begin.
I didn't hear the question. May I hear it again, please?
Yes, sir. So one section of the legal fraternity has an opinion that plea bargaining can reduce the deterrence and respect for law and tends to extort guilty pleas. What is your take on this?
My take on this is criminal justice system must function, must work, must deliver justice in 6 months or a year. It can't take 30 years, 35 years to create a deterrent. You know, they say that we can't guarantee perfect justice. The system must work. And if the system has to work, we have to reduce the burden. There was once a discussion on delays in cases in the Bar Association of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, long time ago in 70s. And various people came and said the ill effects of delay. But one of the persons who was an ex-MLA, he came to speak and he took out from his pocket a matchbox. He says, I have a solution. Let's burn them. Why can't the law also provide for abatement? It's not eye for an eye. That's not justice. Not being able to decide for 10 years, 20 years is not justice. If we can't give justice, we should at least curtail the misery of people. That's my response.
Lordship, would you like to add something to it? Or shall we move to next question? Tanvi, I think we should take next question. Or
Right.
we should wait because I cannot see Justice Lokpal here.
Right, that's the reason I can't see either. I think meanwhile we'll move to the next question. I think Shashi has a question. So Shashi, can you please ask your question?
Yeah, a very good evening to everyone present. My name is Shashi. I'm a final year LLB student at Campus Law Center, Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. My question is for Tulsi sir. Sir, would it be correct to say that how successful or how efficient plea bargaining is in a legal system depends to a large extent on the conviction rate in that legal system? If the conviction rates are low, every accused person would like to take his chances with a trial rather than go for plea bargaining and have a conviction recorded in his name. Is that a correct assessment?
No. The rate of conviction will
Yes, sir.
get a huge boost from plea bargaining. In America, it's 90%. In Japan, it's 99% conviction. People will admit to their guilt. We won't have to write false stories, either for the prosecution or the defense. We will at least get instant justice. We can't guarantee a perfect justice. Let's give them at least the second best alternative of plea bargaining. So that today, if you take all the offenses under the IPC and special laws, the conviction rate is less than 10%. The total conviction rate is less than 10%. If you have plea bargaining, and I am willing to go to every prison in the country to propagate the beauty of plea bargaining in criminal law, which has been provided to us for the first time in 2006. We need to go there, we need to convince them, come out and speak the truth. You'll be able to get away. That also, getting away, everybody knows the value of freedom. There's nothing more precious for a person than freedom. And if he has earned this freedom even through plea bargaining, he would be loath to commit that offense again. Rather than undergo a sentence and then get released and then take revenge.
Mr. Tulsi, I could not hear you due to the power failure and connectivity failure. One question was asked by lawyer Hegde.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Prithvi, you may unmute yourself and ask again.
Now you repeat the question first. So I will reply.
Sir, my question was, some section of the legal fraternity has an opinion that clear bargaining can reduce the deterrence and respect for law and tends to extort guilty pleas. What is your take on this?
My view is that every law has dual meanings. So far, plea bargain is concerned. Plea bargain, in fact, as it was initially opposed in India, right from the 1980s, that it is against the criminal jurisprudence. So, if we go with this spirit of the thinking, so my view is that really it is against the criminal jurisprudence. If a person has committed a wrong, he has to be punished. But the second thought is that when we are unable to decide the criminal cases expeditiously, and we are unable to punish the accused persons properly, and as it has been said by Mr. Tulsi that the conviction rate is less than 10%. In such contingency, though it may be against the principle of criminal jurisprudence, but this is the demand of the time, and more than as the other speaker has said that more than 90% cases in America has been decided by under the plea bargain. Plea bargain, one thing is very much clear, that benefit should go to the person who is fair enough in accepting the guilt. So if a person has committed a wrong once upon a time, he may be given the benefit. As this benefit is not available to the accused second time, as well as it is not available in the cases where the sentence is more than 7 years. So punishment is there. So 100% we cannot say that it is against the public policy or against the criminal jurisprudence. I think that your query will be satisfied.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Lord.
You have raised a very good question. Thanks for your question.
I think we have 2-3 more questions.
Yes.
Krishna has one question, so can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, please.
Tanvi, I had seen a question posted by one Chetna Bhargav. Chetna, you may unmute yourself.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, please.
Good evening, Honorable Lordship, and good evening, Honorable Senior Advocate Mr. Tulsi. I am Chetna Bhargav, student of 4th year law. Sir, my question is, plea bargaining, like you said, is applicable to the offences for which the punishment is up to 7 years.
No.
And similarly, the cases where punishment is up to 7 years, it can be referred for mediation as well. So, sir, how would plea bargaining and or mediation affect the outcome of a case?
See, plea bargaining is controlled by the judge, and there is a formal application in the trial court that is made. Whereas mediation is by non-judges or retired judges and lawyers. They persuade both parties to look at the advantage of the situation by which the case can come to an end. So mediation happens outside the court, whereas plea bargaining happens inside the court.
A plea bargain start on an application of the accused.
Yes.
No, except the accused, no one can enter into the plea bargain except the accused. Except, as the previous speaker has said, that application by the accused supported by an affidavit shown by him that he is making the application voluntarily and there is no duress upon him. Chetna, your question, first question is answered, but second question remained unanswered. Your question is whether this plea bargain is available more than this, in a case of more than 7 years of sentence. It is not available. And the 19 cases, provisions have been made. In those provisions, this plea bargain is not available. Dowry Prohibition Act, Commission of Sati Prevention Act, 19. So these are the, you can go through with the comments of the chapter 21A. Any more query from your side?
Sir, I had one more question.
Yes, please.
Lordship, my question was sir has told us that the court may reduce the sentence to half or 1/4 of the punishment, or
Yeah.
as we have seen under section 428 of the CRPC, they can set off the period of detention undergone by the accused against the sentence of imprisonment. Lordship, my question was, can similar suggestions be made by a mediator in his report to the court?
Yes, it can be. The provisions of section 265A are not in contradiction to the section 428 of the CRPC.
Thank you, Lordship.
Thank you, Lordship. Thank you, sir, for your views. Moving to our next question, Ayan has a question. Ayan, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Good evening to the honorable members of the panel. So my question is actually a hypothetical question. So I wanted to know if there is a situation wherein wherein an accused is pressurized into accepting into plea bargaining to accept their guilt. So this is a hypothetical question given that duress is not allowed. So that is an ideal situation where the court is expecting nobody to be under duress while filing for plea bargaining. But are there situations where this may happen? And if there are, so wouldn't that go against principles of natural justice?
I would request the participants to just address the questions to the speaker whom they want to respond first.
Actually, I want an answer from both of them.
Mr. Participant, yes. You made a hypothetical question to us. Suppose under duress, an application for plea bargain has been made. Then in such contingency, what is the, as any order passed on a plea bargain application has finality. So in a civil law, in a criminal law, or any type of law in the country, if any order is obtained under the duress, coercion, then and no appeal is available, right of appeal is not available, then the applicant can move the application before the same court, bring all the facts before in the notice of the court, and explain and prove, though it is always difficult. And if he is unable to prove before the court, he can avail the remedy of Article 226, read with section Article 227 of the Constitution of India. Because these powers has not been taken away by any of the act, extraordinary power of the High Court.
Okay, sir.
So would you like to, Tulsi sir, would you like to add something to it?
I would like to say that the statute already provides for determination by the court that the application is voluntary. Not once but thrice. And even in the final order, it is duly required to be recorded that it is voluntary and no coercion. After that, it's a final order which cannot be challenged in any way. At least I will not advise anyone to file an application. Having taken benefit of the provision, you can't go back and say that Now it should be, you can't reverse the clock.
Mr. KTS Tulsi, I have some difference here. The reason is the application came forward voluntarily. Affidavit is there. But if sometimes some foul play is played with the accused by the prosecutor or the counsel, then certainly he has a right to put the things right in the right way by filing application, recall application, or moving to the High Court. But he has to prove it that it was not voluntarily and it has been made under some coercion.
Yes.
So, depending on the circumstances, it can be availed.
Though it is tough, always tough for the applicant, for the accused, it is always tough. But it is not that it cannot be done. It can be.
Only thing is required to be established that the consent was not voluntary.
Surely.
Right.
Yes, next question.
Thank you, sir, for your opinion, sir.
Question. Krishna, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. Sir, my name is Krishna Rastogi. I'm a third-year law student from Law College, Dehradun. So, my question is to Mr. Tulsi, sir. Sir, will the plea bargaining not affect the psychology of the victim because the victim expects a harsh sentence from the defendant, for the defendant?
That's why the law has to balance the equities, and the law has sought to balance this. It is encouraging somebody to speak the truth, and on that basis he will be rewarded. It's the truth being rewarded. And these philosophical questions really don't arise. These are cases of acute misery. If you go to the Indian prison, you will realize what kind of water they are drinking, what kind of food, the manner in which the barrack, which is meant for 10 persons, 50 people are herded into it. Many people want to escape that, and they might falsely confess or make a statement in their affidavit. You're not required to confess. The legislature has been at pains to prescribe mutually satisfactory disposition in every clause. We can't say that now it equals to a confession, but the law is meant for the good of the largest number. It can't be good for everybody.
Mr. KTS Tulsi, I would like to add one thing. Mr. Participants, so far plea bargain is concerned, it cannot be unilaterally. Parties to these proceedings are the prosecution, the court, the accused, the victim. Now you go to the provisions of section 265C, provided that throughout such process of working out a satisfactory disposition of the case, it shall be the duty of the court to ensure that the entire process is completed voluntarily by the parties participating in the meeting. Voluntarily means the complainant, victim is also the party. If the victim is not agree, then these proceedings cannot be completed.
Right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Lordship. Thank you, sir. I think our speakers were kind enough to wait for all the questions. We've concluded this aspect of the session as well. Now I invite Sanpreet to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Tanvi. Honorable Mr. Justice Lokpal Singh Ji, Judge, Uttarakhand High Court. Honorable Mr. KTS Tulsi, Senior Advocate. My colleague Tanvi Dubey, and President of our Madhya Pradesh State Wing. law is a learning process, and we are learning through these webinars during these tough days. We had our first session. We had a privilege to have our first session with Honorable Justice Lokpal Singh Ji. And moving ahead, we had organized an international webinar on the topic of mediation in collaboration with Supreme Court mediators, Commonwealth Lawyers Association, and Singapore International Mediation Center, which was chaired by Honorable Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul, Judge, Supreme Court of India. And I must mention here that it was a resounding success and had more than 27,000 viewers as on today. Mr. KTS Tulsi sir has rightly educated us about the provisions of Chapter 21A of CRPC, section-wise, and Honorable Justice Lokpal Singh has given his point of view on the subject, and it was a very informative session and a resounding success. And the participants, as well as the persons who could not join us today, they may come across this session in our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. So far as tomorrow's class is concerned, the same will be taken by Mr. Brain Spears. He is an international speaker and he would speak on cross-border mediation tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Lordship, for this wonderful and insightful session. I urge everyone to be safe and be healthy. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Mr. KTS Tulsi.
Thank you, sir. Nice meeting you.
Thanks a lot.